Welcome to Planning Time. Today we're going to talk about the 4% rule. This is a pretty common strategy to develop income in retirement. I'm going to use some portfolio analysis software. We're going to have the whiteboard out today. We're going to kind of dig in a little bit deeper, look at the numbers, why this might be a good idea or why it might not be a good idea for you. But before we jump into all of that, my name is Friend Williams, the creator of Planning Time process here at Riverdog Wealth. I want to remind everyone that this video is for information only. It is not advice. I am a financial professional, but I use this channel to just ask some questions and hopefully get y'all to ask some questions along with us just to make sure that you understand what your retirement planning looks like and that it is going to be as efficient and beneficial for you as possible. If this information is helpful or you know somebody that this information might help, please feel free to share, subscribe to pass this along. Okay. So we want to dig in. So I want to talk to you real quickly. I've got this board screen up here. So we want to talk about the 4% rule. Let's see if I can get this to work. There we go. 4% rule. It was built by a mathematician, and he sat down one day and just said, hey, if you take your whole portfolio in retirement and you basically put it into a diversified allocation, then mathematically you should be able to withdraw 4% a year and that money would last the rest of your life. And so a lot of firms and different retirement planning companies, they use this still today. They build you a diversified portfolio. Maybe it has some US equities, it has some large cap, mid cap, small cap. Maybe it has some international exposure with emerging and developing, and then it's got some bonds, whether that's high yield, commercial, municipal, government bonds, treasuries, all those fun things. So build this big portfolio, maybe rebalance once a year or something along those lines. And then we just pull 4% a year from that. So if you have Social Security, pension, rental income, any side job, any of that kind of income coming in, this would just be on top of that coming from the actual portfolio. Back in the early 90s, the market was doing really well. If you look at if you Google this for the 4% rule, there's a lot of different opinions. And I'm not saying that any of them are right or wrong. It's just some will say you can pull 4%. Some say you can pull more than 4%. Some say you can pull less than 4%. So it's this, really muddled space. So on the screen, you should see a portfolio that I build out using some portfolio analysis software that we use. And this is just going to be very bare bones and basic. What I've done is built a 60-40 portfolio with 60% stocks, 40% bonds. And I used for the stocks, I use SPY at 60%. So we're going to have $1 million portfolio. You might have more, you might have less. Not the point, it's just a math equation. So 600,000 in stocks, 400,000 in bonds using BND Vanguard's total bond market ETF. So down here, you will notice that we've put the graph or the analysis to a 10-year look back. So over the last 10 years, how would this have performed? We have it on a yearly rebalance, which just means if it gets out of balance, stocks grow or shrink or bonds grow or shrink, we just at the end of the year put it back to a 60-40 balance. And I've just included a 1% advisory fee just to make it as fair as possible. So the 60-40 portfolio over that amount of time, that 10 years, has averaged 8.84%. Not bad. It's been a good 10 years. The S&P in that same amount of time has averaged 15.41. So you can see that using this graph, the blue line is the S&P, the green line is going to be your 60-40 portfolio. That over those 10 years, the S&P has gained 319% as opposed to the 60-40 portfolio bringing in 113% in growth. And that's normal, right? We have bonds in that 60-40 portfolio. It's probably not going to be expected to grow as much as the market. So nothing crazy here. So the first thing we want to talk about is going to be the portfolio. You can build a portfolio that is aggressive or that is conservative or somewhere in the middle based on an allocation between stocks and bonds. When you're using the 4% rule, or if you think you're exploring the option of the 4% rule, the allocation of that portfolio is going to be very impactful. So if you have a portfolio that is too conservative, the potential would be there for it not to keep up with that 4% withdrawal. just because simply it doesn't grow enough to replace those dollars and to keep up with inflation. You can build a portfolio that is too aggressive. And so maybe you have multiple years of poor market performance while you're pulling money out in the form of income at that 4% rate each year. And that would make it difficult for that portfolio potentially to build back those assets that it lost during that period, making your income a bit more unstable. If you look at years like 2000 through 2002, where the market lost half of its value and you were in an aggressive portfolio, say you were in the S&P and that was your whole portfolio, by the end of that, if you were taking, say you had $1 million in 1999 and you took $40,000 from that portfolio, at the end of 2022, where that portfolio might be worth $500,000, you're taking now 4% of 500,000 is only 20,000. So we've really hurt your income. The portfolio allocation is supremely important and probably will need to be adjusted over time based on your income needs and your lifestyle. But I would just challenge you to ask the question, if you're using the 4% rule, what does my portfolio look like? Is it providing me with enough security, but also enough growth to do exactly what I want it or need it to do in retirement? And remember, we have to keep up with inflation. So let's take a look at a period look on this. So this is each year individually, 1 year at a time, going back 10 years. We're looking at the better years where the market performs well. We have blue, which is your S&P 500, and then you have green, which is your 60-40. So you'll just notice that in the up years, we have the market outperforming the 60-40 portfolio pretty much all the time. But what I want you to take a look at, and what's interesting over the last 10 years, is that even in down markets, with the quote-unquote protection of the bonds in the 60-40 portfolio, the portfolios were actually down just about as much as the market. So it didn't actually provide much security from a down market environment. In fact, you went along with the ride. And what did you get for that? You actually got less performance, right? So again, just want to make sure that your portfolio is built efficiently and it makes sense for what you need that portfolio to do over time. Okay. So let's add another variable to this. Let's go to our cash flow projections. Let's do withdrawal percent of portfolio. So we're going to take 4% a year. There we go. And we're just going to say we take 4% a year. We're going to have a portfolio that is $1 million. And we're going to look at the last 10 years. We're still going to have a yearly rebalance and an advisory fee of 1% just to keep things fair here. So we're going to have your green line is the 60-40 portfolio with no withdrawals. So you started with $1 million. If you were to withdraw nothing from this portfolio, you would have $2.3 million at the end of those 10 years. And if we were to draw our 4% from that same 60-40 portfolio, we would now have $1.5 million. So with this portfolio, it looks like over the 10 years, we were able to withdraw $500,000 or $50,000 a year on average because the portfolio kept growing. So that 4% just became more. So that all worked out well, although we want to take a look at the inflation. So inflation, if we run it about 3%, if we take $1 million, 3% a year, that's $30,000 a year. If we, times that by 10, that's 300,000. So you've basically kind of gone sideways, a little bit to the upside, but mostly sideways with this strategy. Okay. Today we went through the 4% rule, and I am not here to say that it is right or wrong for your income strategy in retirement. The goal of today's video is truly to give you enough information that you can ask the pertinent questions to make sure that your allocations and your, more importantly, income in retirement is working as hard and as efficiently as it possibly can for you.